and his condition quickly stabilized thanks to his crewmates and flight surgeons on the ground. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see mostly sunny skies here for today with a high into the mid-40s. Winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. And then for tonight, mostly clear with a low near 33. By Friday, we'll see sunshine, breezy conditions, high of 62. Then Saturday, a chance for some snow late, cloudy, high of 38 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 25.
Snapshot from Progressive wasn't created for just anybody. Oh no, we made it for you. Smooth accelerators. When that light turns green, you're off. Like a warm knife through firm butter. Going from 0 to the speed limit in an appropriate amount of time. Sure, your car has horsepower, but your horses prance around as silky smooth as your right foot. Fancy Prancerton. With Snapshot, safe drivers like you get personalized rates based on your driving habits. Sign up today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Welcome. Good Thursday morning. Guys, welcome to the February 26, 2026. So I had to say that slowly because I knew I'd blow right through it. Edition of Choose You, 773-763-9278 is the number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. You can email me at richard@wcpt820.com. And you can follow me on X, Instagram, Substack, Spoutable, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Catch all of our shows, all of them, by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, Patty Vasquez, Driving You Home, It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, and Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Make your way over to our heartlandsignal.com digital platform because of all the good stuff that we have over there. And let me give you the quick list, and then I'll let you know about today's show. Wow. So David Hogg was in town campaigning with Annabelle Mendoza, and he talked about the fact that even though Gen Z is voting more than other generations when they were that age, there's still a need to improve the number of Gen Z voters that are out there voting. And he spoke about that in terms of the voter suppression, youth voter suppression, when it comes on, especially in college campuses. So check out that piece at Heartland. It's a good, solid piece. Comedian Paula Poundstone hanging out with Patty Vasquez and talking about how just her comedic work, talking about Donald Trump, is exhausting to her. Really good piece and good work on Patty's part. And Texas Representative Tony Gonzalez refuses to resign over an alleged affair with a staffer. He's refusing several calls from his Republican colleagues to resign after a report of an alleged affair who committed suicide, unfortunately. And then one other good piece, Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, was going on about how it seemed as though Senate Democrats got more done in terms of working in conjunction with former President Biden in terms of the reconciliation bills and other work that they actually got done. Meanwhile, the Republicans aren't working with Trump and aren't getting anything done and are spending lots and lots of money to just keep kind of circling and circling and circling, but not getting anything done. So, yeah, that's the good stuff that we have over at heartlandsignal.com. So make your way over there so you can check those things out, share them, and be able to say to your friends and your folks and the people out there, see, I told you so. Shout out to my man Henry, who's rolling us down the track, and Mike, who's keeping the back end from switching off the rails. When you got an engineer, you get a front end engineer, and you have a person in the back that's just making sure that things are still moving along. So that's how our teams work here. We got the folks driving and the folks that are watching. So it makes it a lot easier for me. Today's show, did an interview with Catherine Lhamon, who is the head of the law team, if you will, and professor at the University of Stanford Law program. So we'll be playing that interview with for you that I had with her recently. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, author Ralph Eubanks, who will be with us again when he was with us last time, and we'll get into this again today. He's an American essayist and journalist, professor, public speaker, but he talks about the impact of what's happened in the state of Mississippi when it comes to land and property and just, race, identity, culture, and literature in the American South. And we'll talk about his book. And then in the 7:30 hour, Nathan Taylor, who you guys may remember, Truth Alliance, they really get into the weeds and the numbers, talking about our elections. And it'll be great to talk to him again about what he sees, if there's progress that we're making when it comes to our elections, if there's progress that we're making when it comes to how we navigate and deal with our elections and the accuracy that's going on with them. So that's going to be really a good conversation with him. I want to just kind of give you guys a little bit of a roadmap about something. One of the things that we should really discipline ourselves to not do or to do, depending on how you look at it, is, I've said this many times before, let us not buy into the GOP talking points. Let us not let their talking points be ours. They've got their set of standards and their way of doing things. Let that be what they do. And let's make sure, and we have to encourage our elected officials to stop, using their talking points to talk about the things that are important to, our party, our voters, and the rest. We have to have our own. I'm a strong believer in that. And the more that we stay in that lane, the better. At the same time, I said this the other day, I wasn't going to watch the State of the Union for all the reasons that I'd said then and still stayed with now. And many people had similar reasons and others, but they didn't watch it, didn't participate. We use it as a tool to talk about yesterday, which we needed to. But the other thing I want us to stop doing now, or depending on how you look at it, start doing, but it's all part of this. Let's have our own narrative and not be taking talking points, even incidentally, from Republicans. And oftentimes those talking points are designed to slam Democrats. Right, Henry? So we can't take their talking points in the most subtle of ways and use them as our talking points, which may inadvertently denigrate our own party. We got to be done with that. And in the same vein, we have to stop waiting for the GOP and Trump to be rational. I thought about this when I was reading the Tuberville piece. Yeah, the Democratic senators got stuff done under Biden. They just did. They truly passed a big, beautiful bill in terms of the infrastructure. That was a big, beautiful bill. Wasn't designed to hurt anybody. It was designed to help everybody, even the wealthy class. Because listen, Henry and Mike, somebody that is a billionaire here in Illinois has to drive on the same roads that someone that's not is, even if they're being driven around. They don't go around in hovercrafts, I mean, do they, Mike? They don't go around in hovercrafts. They gotta, and if they're taking a private jet, if they take a helicopter to the private jet, they still have to fly in the same airspace and breathe the same air. So the big, ugly bill was designed to benefit those folks. By contrast, the Affordable Care Act, if we go back that far, or if we just stay more recent with the infrastructure bill, senators got it done because that was designed to help everybody. Infrastructure is infrastructure. Better water is better water for everybody. I can get so granular with this. And let me give you an example. If you live in a very, very high income, high net worth zip code, and you don't drink water from the tap, which means you have your water delivered by whomever the company is, guess what? They still got to drive to your crib to drop off the water. Right, Mike? Right, Henry? They still got to come to you. They still got to bring it to you. If you're that wealthy and you don't drink water from a tap, if it's that purified, the purification system, the person doesn't get there on a hovercraft. They got to get to your spot to do the work to make sure that your filterization system is working properly. I'm being overly nuanced and getting into the sort of crazy way I think sometimes, because those types of bills benefit everybody. The infrastructure bill benefits everyone. At least its attempt is, and it's most certainly not a bill designed to hurt anybody or take anything away from anybody. So we can't, two parts of the rail. We cannot embrace or accidentally use any of the Republican talking points, one. And two, we cannot wait for the GOP to become rational when it comes to legislation and when it comes to the things that are better for all people in this country. And we could take that from any category and everything in between, whether it is about voting, whether it is about the history of voting, whether it's about the Electoral College, whether it's about states' rights, whether it's about women's rights, whether it's about our tariff situation, immigration, any of those things. We have to keep reminding ourselves our ideas are better for the largest and the larger masses of people in this country, if not the world. So no more of this GOP waiting for the GOP to be rational. They're not going to get there. And while they're still in this fog of Trump and trying to figure their way around him, this is where we have the opportunities. And we just have to keep reminding ourselves, and I know I talk about it maybe more than people have the patience to hear, but we have to be constantly reminding ourselves of those realities. And then one more thing before we hit this break. I have nothing against McDonald's or the food that they provide, because it serves an incredible import to our economy, both on the food providing side and the opportunities for people to work at McDonald's. But this just goes to show how much of a garbage can this administration is. Why are you going to bring in the hockey team to the White House? And you supposedly are the big daddy swinger, meaning Donald Trump and his administration, and serve them anything other than Chateaubriand. Somebody help me with that. I mean, how are you going to do that? Have nothing against McDonald's. Don't get me wrong. And I know that McDonald's is a great part of so many sports teams stopping on the way home from a long event. I get that. So don't anybody get your undies in a bundle about me trashing McDonald's. I'm not doing that. I go to McDonald's when I got to go. Full stop. And I know how McDonald's has impacted so many people's lives in a positive way in this country. Okay? But if it's the White House and it's our hockey team and they haven't won a gold medal in, what is it, 50, almost 50 years, 45 solid? Chateaubriand. Cristal. Bib lettuce. Right? Nothing against McDonald's, but come on, y'all. That's the garbage can that the White House is right now. That's the garbage can of this administration. So I had to say that. Let's take a quick break, y'all. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM. From Warren County, North Carolina, I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is Tara Devlin for the Political Voices Network. This is America, right? We don't do kings here. No crowns, no thrones, no authoritarian cosplay. That's why we created the No Kings American Flag pin. For the low price of $20.26, that's 2026, we're keeping our eye on the prize here. This well-crafted enamel pin is the standard 1-inch American flag lapel pin, but this one features the patriotic No Kings symbol that defines our rallying cry. It's your quiet way of signaling to other patriots that you believe in democracy, and yeah, that still matters. You can grab yours now at store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. That's store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. The No Kings American Flag pin. Get it now at store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
This is Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. A couple of Choose Views news items on this February 26, 2026. Kind of like a palindrome, 26, 2026. Anyhow, Netflix deal is in doubt after Paramount's latest WBD bid. Warner Brothers Discovery says Paramount Skydance's latest takeover could offer could lead to a superior proposal to the pact it currently has with Netflix. If WBD sides with Paramount's $31 per share cash bid, Netflix will have 4 days to respond. Netflix could cut a deal. They did cut a deal to buy WBD in December, but last week granted a 7-day waiver allowing the company to reopen talks with Paramount. While negotiations continue, the merger agreement remains in effect, and the board continues to recommend in favor of the Netflix transaction. I certainly hope that that's what happens, because I do not want to see Paramount, Skydance, and the Ellisons have control over WBD. I just don't. I know I've been hard on that, but that's where I am because of the implications that it has in terms of messaging and information. Just read the data. TJ Maxx owner foresees a sales slowdown and amid the headwinds that they're dealing with tariffs. The owner of TJ Maxx and Marshalls foresees that a slowdown will take place after topping sales expectations during the critical holiday spending period. TJX companies noted yesterday that their annual forecast is below the Wall Street projections as cost-conscious shoppers pull back on discretionary spending. Rivals including Ross stores and Burlington stores, meanwhile, are expanding their discount offerings, furthering pressure on TJX brands. JP Morgan Chase hikes their 2026 tech budget by almost $2 billion. They're looking to spend about $19.8 billion on technology this year, a rise of about 10% compared to last year, according to the bank leadership committee last week, or earlier this week, I should say. While most of the nearly $2 billion increase is due to investments, part of it is caused by inflation, which is driving up hardware costs. The news comes as rival financial firms boost their AI expenditures as part of a longer-range effort to cut costs. Bank of America intends to shell out about $14 billion on technology in 2026. If that's going toward improving wages, good idea. If it's just going toward more technology, I don't know. Lowe's sales pop up even as real estate sectors are struggling. Lowe's reported quarterly revenue and earnings yesterday that topped Wall Street's expectations as the home improvement retailer saw sales increase more than 10% year over year. In a statement, CEO Marvin Ellison said the company's strategy is appealing to both DIY customers and professionals, even against the backdrop of higher mortgage rates and slower real estate sales. A day earlier, as we reported yesterday, rival Home Depot posted a 4% sales decline in their fourth quarter. So those are good. They are good bellwethers to see when those stores are reporting certain ups or downs as to how they're being impacted by the tariffs and the overall economy and consumer spending. Half of new data center projects could face delays this year. The race to build artificial intelligence centers is hitting roadblocks, according to a new report from data intelligence firm Sightline Climate. As many as half of the world's data center projects scheduled for this year may be delayed, according to this report. And it's coming from community pushback. Grid equipment demands fall short and power is constrained. Despite these setbacks and a growing number of moratorium proposals, 2026 data center additions are on track to eclipse last year's record. So there you go. A couple of quick choose views news items on this February 26, 2026. And as you guys know, I'm going to be down in North Carolina this weekend. For my listeners in North Carolina, don't miss the Building Bridges Fireside Chat. It's a free event that I'll be co-hosting with North Carolina Democratic Party Chair Anderson Clayton this Sunday, March 1st, just 2 days before the state's Democratic primary. We'll be joined by North Carolina State Reps Rodney Pierce and Dante Pittman, Pastor James Gaillard, candidate for North Carolina State Senate, and Durham Mayor Leo Williams for an open conversation with North Carolina voters. The event takes place at Word Tabernacle Church in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, this Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. To register, go to heartlandsignal.com and click on My Picture. That'll take you to my show page where you'll find information about the event and a registration link. Or visit ncdp.org and click on the Building Bridges tab at the top of the site. Hope to see you there. All right. Oh, more stuff. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito's guests are Myra Macias, independent candidate for the 4th Congressional District in Illinois, where she's vying to replace Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia. Tom Villanova, retired president of the Chicago and Cook County Building and Construction Trades Council, ahead of the Southland Friends Labor annual breakfast next Monday, the 2nd at Sprinkler Fitters Local in Alsip. Rick Smith, the host of the Rick Smith Show, weekdays 5 to 6 a.m. right before me, and Heartland Signal's Rich Everyone with 3 stories you might have missed from our digital newsroom, but not if you're paying attention to me saying go to heartlandsignal.com. Anyhow, WCPT's Doris Davenport, who will be hosting 5 radio shows in March for Problem Gambling Awareness Month, tuned in Sundays, March 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th from 3 to 4 Central Time. All right, that's Live, Local, and Progressive here on WCPT 2 to 5, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. And then tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by her co-host Carmen Navarro-Gershon and Paul Fajardo. And their special guests include Tina Garza, who is a Senior Development and Organizational Initiatives Manager at Catholics for Choice. That's Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, AM 820, the Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And tomorrow it's Friday, so Karen Byrne of True Blue Politics Podcast will be hanging with us. Sean Smith-Pierce and Jody Hamilton of the Politics Bar, now airing weeknights 7 to 9 p.m. here on WCPT. And Kevin Schultz, professor of history at University of Illinois in Chicago, author of Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, including White Liberals. There you go. That's what's happening on all 3 of our shows today and tomorrow. All right. A couple of quick, what I like to call my VIPs of observation. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but there was a whistleblower that came forward that is speaking about the connection between Tulsi Gabbard and Jared Kushner, who were trying to, this whistleblower complaint, and I'll read you the brief, that is reportedly so damaging and potentially dangerous to national security against Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard that is kept in a locked safe in the White House continues to grow as a looming problem for the White House. The complaint against Gabbard alleges that the Director of National Intelligence suppressed intel gathered as 2 members of foreign governments were heard discussing someone from Trump's inner circle on a phone call. Instead of following the law and turning the complaint over for investigation to the relevant congressional committees, Gabbard walked the complaint over to the White House and handed it to Trump's chief of staff. Gabbard did this because the person reportedly being discussed by foreign governments is Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees who have the appropriate security clearances have been trying to get access to the intelligence on which the complaint against Gabbard is based, but the Trump administration has refused to cooperate. That's a bigger scandal in many ways than Watergate, and that's my observation. Some may say differently, because they literally went in the wrong direction. No pun intended. They went to the wrong building in terms of where that information should go. But that, again, is this White House covering up stuff, Henry, covering up stuff. And so I will do my best to keep my eyes on that conversation, because if in fact that's true that she did do that, or that was done by any of the operatives that are part of the DNI, and then we go back to why she showed up in Georgia, these are impeachment. These are impeachment actions, or actions that would call for articles of impeachment, without a doubt, of her and of other members of the White House who were part of it, because she didn't do it by herself. If this actually happened, we know that the Trump administration is not going to follow the rules. They're going to skirt them. They're going to brush up against them as best they can to get what they want. So we'll stay on it. We'll keep you posted, keep you as aware as we can. We're going to take a quick break. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Robin Kelly grew up behind the register in her dad's grocery store, so she knows what it means when the same groceries cost more each week. Under Donald Trump, corporations get tax breaks, loopholes, and a green light to price gouge. Families get higher grocery bills, higher childcare costs, high healthcare premiums. It's Trump's economy. Corporate profits first, people last. In Congress, Robin Kelly's been fighting back. Robin took on insurance companies to lower drug costs. She wrote the law extending Medicaid for new moms to a full year, because cutting care after 60 days was just wrong. And now Robin Kelly is running for Senate with a people over profits agenda. Medicare for all, so healthcare isn't a ripoff. Cap on childcare costs so families can work. And crack down on corporate price gouging so you're not punished at every turn. People over profits. Robin Kelly for U.S. Senate.
I'm Robin Kelly, Democrat running for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Robin Kelly for Senate.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see mostly sunny skies here for today with a high into the mid-40s. Winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. And then for tonight, mostly clear with a low near 33. By Friday, we'll see sunshine, breezy conditions, high of 62. Then Saturday, a chance for some snow late, cloudy, high of 38 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 25.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Well, welcome back to Choose Views, listeners. Thanks for being with us this morning. I had the opportunity to talk with one of the top legal minds in our country, and has been in that kind of capacity for a while now, serving both the Biden and the Obama administrations in one capacity or another, and of late has become the, I guess the word that they're using is the inaugural executive director of the Edley Center on Law and Democracy at the University of California Law School at Berkeley. I'm talking about Catherine Lhamon, who was with us this morning, and I'm so excited and honored to have you with us this morning, Ms. Lhamon. Thanks for hanging out with Choose Views on WCPT here in Chicago.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I said as part of the opening, and so happy to have you with us that you've served in a couple of administrations in one capacity or another, but currently you've got this big, weighty, important role with UC Berkeley's law school. Tell us a little bit about sort of your background, how you got to this point, things that you've done, so that our listeners can have from you, sort of introduction into the work that you've done and the things that you're doing right now.
Well, thanks so much. I will make this short, but I'm a lifelong civil rights lawyer, and I litigated civil rights cases in California for 17 years before going to the federal government. When I came to the federal government, I worked first in the Obama administration and then in the Biden administration, twice as the chief civil rights enforcer in the nation's schools at the U.S. Department of Education at the Office for Civil Rights. I also was President Biden's deputy for racial justice and equity, so managing his domestic racial justice and equity policy, and I chaired the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights in the first Trump administration at the appointment of President Obama. So lots of civil rights roles that precede this time now at UC Berkeley School of Law, Edley Center on Law and Democracy, where it's my job to help protect American democracy for all of us. So it's a daunting task now, and no shortage of work to be done, and obviously a very critical time.
In years to come, people will say I stood on her shoulders because of the fact that, no, I say that and we laugh and have fun about it, but I say that because it's the truth. And it's important that we say it, particularly now, of course, Black History Month,
Yes.
the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson,
Yes.
all these things that are, you and I stand on each other's shoulders. We stand on the shoulders of others. And, God willing, somebody will look back and say they stood on your shoulders with what you're doing right now.
Thank you. I wanted to say to you, just on that moment and with Reverend Jackson's passing, the day that President Obama announced my nomination to the Office for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education, I happened to be scheduled to have lunch with Reverend Jackson. And he talked to me about what it was he wanted me to do in that role, how much the nation needed me. And so I literally was working at his direction with his guidance. And I've carried him close every day since, and I miss him today.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been telling stories and sharing moments yesterday and today, and I said to the audience all over the country, you got to give me some space because he's impacted my life for all of my teenage years and adult life, and so many millions of others across the globe, not just here in Chicago or the country for that matter. And that's real stuff. That's got teeth in it kind of statements, because you and I, we're just meeting, and here you tell me this is one of your seminal moments with Reverend Jackson. And so I think that we have to take the time, I said earlier today, slow down and allow us to appreciate the impact that he's had on so many people's lives. And the things that he's done. I said this morning that he was a hostage negotiator as well as a reverend, and so I mean, what I'm.
That's right. Yes.
So let's talk about the role now that you're going to be in, or that you are in, with the law school and at UC Berkeley, and what that really will encompass. And then let's tie that back to more broadly civil rights, and why that civil rights are so incredibly important right now on all fronts.
Sure. The job of the Democracy Center that I run is to help make sure that Americans know our democracy principles and are equipped to use them. I mean, one of the things that is so dangerous in this time, where we're seeing our democracy guardrails not in use, is that too many institutions, too many of us are acceding to our own harm from a president who is insistent on autocratic impulses, who is insistent on not following the law and operating according to his whim about what he wants to be. So when the president issues an executive order, people are taking those executive orders as if they're new laws. But high school civics teaches us that Congress writes the law. The president doesn't do that, right? So he can issue an executive order. What he's doing is telling executive agencies how he wants them to operate. And if we just do those things without actually having a law that tells us that we must, or a court that tells us that we must, then we are operating as if he's a king, and that's not a democracy. So what I want to do is make sure that people know what the law is, people know what their rights are, and are able to use the robust democracy protective tools that our Constitution has written in place. So we're publishing white papers, we're holding webinar series. We have one coming up next month it's in person, and it's a forum on public corruption. And it's just taking a look at, it's got a former Watergate prosecutor, it's got former U.S. Department of Justice prosecutors, the president of the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington coming to speak at Berkeley Law School about what it means to have a corrupt government and what we can do to oppose that corruption moving forward. And so it's examples like that over and over and over that, we're publishing about these core principles so that people can be the democracy defenders that our democracy depends on.
One of your allies that you may or may not be aware of and working with is Lavora Barnes in Michigan, who is working with an organization of the Democracy Defenders, and she is all about making sure that we maintain. She talked about this certainly in the state of Michigan, but throughout the rest of the country, that we have people that are fighting for democracy and making sure that that they understand. And when you talked about this in terms of high school. I've said so many times, Ms. Lhamon, one of the biggest misses right now, and has been for a while, is that we're not talking about or teaching civics on a regular, hardcore basis in high school. We've got to do that because we have way too many people that just go, the president says, I'm executive order. I want to do this, or I want to stop this.
That's right.
And people go, oh, that's law because he's a president. And 78 million people, the majority, if you will, just to play the numbers, said we elect this president so he can do what he wants to. No, we have systems in our government that are broken, certainly fractured, but they're still there. And this is where people don't understand the importance of education, the importance of knowing civics, how we work. And maybe they should go back and watch the old, or what was it? I'm just a Bill, Schoolhouse Rock.
Capitol Hill, exactly.
Let's all go. Right. Let's have a national day of Schoolhouse Rock, just so people understand we've got systems in place, and you're one of those people that's championing that and still fighting for that. Certainly now in this new role. Talk a little bit about the civics piece and why we've got to figure out a way to get back to that.
Right. Our founding principles in our democracy include and rest on an expectation that we will have equal treatment at the hands of our government and that we will all have equal access to participation in our government. And we've lost that in this presidency. We've lost a federal government that is focused on that in this presidency. So we need to really return to an expectation that all of us will be treated fairly and equally. And that's core to democracy health anywhere. So that means that we need to have an effective civil rights infrastructure. And we know that we fought for that in the civil rights movement. And we finally, just 6 decades ago, we finally enshrined into federal law guarantees that no person will be discriminated against based on race, color, national origin. And then we added other protected bases thereafter. And so then, since that time, we've really relied on the federal government to enforce those guarantees. And that was my job to do. And for 2 presidents, I loved it. I think it's beautiful. And it was also my job to evaluate how effective that is. And in the best of times, it's insufficient to the need. We've got, just in schools alone, we have 49 million public school students, 18 million college and university students, and 1 office in the federal government with not quite 600 employees in better times to enforce their rights in all those schools. That can't be equal to the task, right? So we need an infrastructure in every time that works in the states also to protect all of our people. And we haven't built that infrastructure. So it's time. It's not only time because this president is weaponizing civil rights against its intended beneficiaries. It's also time because every time we need enough work available and an infrastructure available to make those promises and those guarantees real in people's lives. So, I just was published a piece in the States Forum talking about this very topic. And, that's a journal that's bringing together thinkers from around the country who are working on ways to reinvigorate our equality guarantees and to reinvigorate states' capacity to fulfill those guarantees. And it's really exciting to me to be in a conversation about that need, but also just, Richard, talking to you in Illinois and just in the shadow of Reverend Jackson's death, Illinois has very good state laws on this topic. So Illinois is kind of a leader across the country. And that happened actually because Operation Push pushed the state to develop that infrastructure. Illinois has room to grow also, and as does every state. And so it's, in this time to be thinking about it, we need to actually build infrastructure in Illinois and in every state around the country so that Americans can believe that they will be protected and that their democracy is for them and that their government will work for them.
One of the things when you just said that, it's funny about the states, I was thinking, so which states, and I know that it's hard to laundry list all of them in this short amount of time that we have this morning, but which states are ones that are on the plus side or would get a better than a 5 rating when it comes to what they have on the books and then how they actually implement their civil rights laws and deal with issues within their states? Are there some that come to mind that can say, yeah, they're doing it right, they're on the right track, and from a federal level, here's how we can help them do even better? What would that be? What would that look like?
Well, I mentioned Illinois that has really good state law, and I mentioned I think there's things that it can do better also, but it's quite good, and it has protections that are broader even than the federal protections. It protects military status, just as one example, for ways to protect people's bases that they can't be discriminated against. California is by far the best state in the country in terms of what its protections are and the infrastructure it has. It too has room to grow. There's been really interesting developments in Maryland, just on a bipartisan basis a couple of years ago, bulked up its infrastructure for civil rights enforcement in the state. So it both has an independent state agency that's responsible for that enforcement and has built a unit in their attorney general's office that can do the work. And they built a structure for finding authority from the institutions that enforce to find civil rights violators, and that builds in money into the state so that they can operate as they should. So those are some really good examples, and we're seeing in states across the country new laws and new efforts to build the infrastructure that they have. There's a new law in Illinois right now that is building on that. So that's exciting to me too, to see our state legislators coming together saying, what else can we do?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've really talked about a lot is the states. What's happening in the states is now more than ever before so important and connected to what's happening federal. What's happening federal is so important. That's what's happening in states on all fronts and in all lanes. So you're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with Catherine Lhamon, who is now the new director of the executive director, I should say, of the Edley Center on Law and Democracy at the University of California at Berkeley School of Law. That's a mouthful, but it's a deserved one because of the weight of the position, but also the importance of it when it comes to making sure that all citizens in the country are protected, are properly represented when there is a civil rights violation or even the sniff of it that there may have been one that took place. I want to ask you a question. It's nuanced, and I'll try to get through it very quickly. One of the things that's always been a concern around civil rights is employment rights, worker rights, and so we talk about Reverend Jackson and so many other leaders that were really driven to make sure that the workplace was safe and operating in a way that was right for employees. And then we get into the conversation around unions. Businesses that are moving to certain states, some are moving to Florida, for example, which is a state that's historically had terrible laws and implementation of the ones that they have when it comes to worker rights and certainly when it comes to civil rights. What is your concern when you look at businesses that are moving to different parts of the country that don't have that civil rights, that robust civil rights backbone to protect workers and protect, the rights of everyday citizens? And you see businesses, deciding to go to a place because, the tax benefits the corporate tax rates are better for them in a certain, part of the country.
Well, I'll say several things. I'm a big believer in taxation, so I support being able to fund a government that works, and looking to avoid that funding, I think, is a mistake in general. But putting that aside, that the notion that business interests are best served when their people are not well served is just a deeply flawed notion in the first place. And to tout Illinois again, when Operation Push was leading a charge to build the state infrastructure for civil rights, the business community was arm in arm with them, saying, we just need to know what the law is. We want clarity. We want to know how we should be treating our people, and what that looks like. And that was forethought that has served Illinois businesses well. And to go to a place where you're not really sure, what the law will or won't be, and how it should apply, really makes it hard to figure out how to respond appropriately to your people. So, I think those are mistakes. But I also want to say, speaking to the danger on employment rights now, the state infrastructure, such as it exists, on protecting civil rights is often dependent on federal funding from the EEOC and from HUD. So that looks at employment rights and fair housing. And the scheme that we've had in those two areas for lo these many in this country has been that the federal government relies on states to help protect protections in those spaces, employment and in housing. We can see in this federal government that funding is going to go away, and that it's at best at significant risk. So, what we know is that there's already more limited protection and employment rights in the Trump administration than there had been before then, because the Trump administration EEOC has told states, we will not reimburse you for enforcement that is inconsistent with the president's executive orders. Now, that's not lawful, right? You can't enforce in a way that's inconsistent with the law. But again, an executive order is not law. But for the federal government to say, we will not reimburse the states if what they do is to protect employee rights that the president doesn't believe in, that's a mob boss operation. That's not a system of laws, and it's incredibly dangerous. So, I think this is a very difficult time, including specifically on employment rights all across the country, just because of that funding problem alone.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask you that question. I knew it had to get it out, because there's a couple of different parts to it, and how we see what our business responsibilities are, because oftentimes the businesses are the ones that we don't really necessarily think of, or maybe everyday folks don't think about, as some of the biggest breachers of civil rights, because I look at it as something that's being tied to our everyday, operating rights, or our employment rights, or our healthcare rights. And the federal government's inability right now to lean into that is not just problematic. It is a cliff that we don't want to go over, because
that's right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You were going to say.
Well, just to say, it's unnecessary, right? It's in business community's interest to protect their workers, and to make sure that people are coming to work, going to work, staying, keeping the jobs, and doing their work. So I think it's such a beautiful history lesson about the progress in Illinois, the way that the business community was an active participant in saying, we want clarity so that we can follow the rules. And that's where we should be. That's where we all should be now.
We have only a certain amount of time today, but I definitely want to be honored to have you back on our show to talk about
Thanks so much.
Seriously, because one of the things that I've tried to do, Ms. Lhamon, is have folks have a person to turn to, or a source, or an institution to turn to get more information, to feel like they're not uninformed, that they can go someplace and say, okay, she's someone that I can at least follow that will help me better understand certain things. And I'm not crazy. I'm not losing my mind. So thank you for being with us today. And I will say this already. We definitely want to have you back so that we can talk more and provide folks with an opportunity to say, there's data, there's information, there's white papers, there's published articles that will better inform me. But as we wrap up today, help folks understand what it is that you think that they can do or be doing when it comes to being aware of civil rights, either violations, or certainly people, businesses, entities, whatever, pushing the envelope that would breach someone's civil rights. How can folks go, simply stated, that ain't right?
Right. Well, that they can do on their own. And in addition, if anybody's interested, put in your search engine the States Forum January book, and you'll see our little piece on civil rights infrastructure and what you can do in your states and what you should expect. And even if you don't want to go and read that, but you should, but if you don't go read that, the reality is all of us can advocate in our communities, write to your state legislators, call your member of Congress. But on this is really, look at your state and say, this is what we need. And for Illinois specifically, but all over the country, what we need is an independent body with capacity to enforce that has staffing and clear state law about, what will protect us. And it's okay to say, I'm worried about this and I expect that my government will actually protect me. And that's something that each of us can do, no matter who we are. We can advocate and we can ask for what we want and make it known.
A lot of people are just thirsty for, what can I do? How can I get involved? What do I not know that I don't know? And what am I craving to be better informed so that I can get involved? Because I think a lot of times what happens, Ms. Lhamon, is that a lot of people don't get involved because they're worried about making a mistake. They're worried about, how they're going to be perceived, that they don't know what the heck they're talking about on a subject, but they want to be involved because something's important to them. They may have a coworker that their worker rights were, taken advantage of. There may have been a harassment issue and they just don't know what to say, where to go, what to do. So that's why your very specific expertise is going to be important to so many people across the country. And I'm really honored that you would take some time to hang out with us this morning.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate that. And I look forward to joining you again.
Let everybody know how they can find you, how they can plug into what you're doing. Just give them the website, give them the social media, whatever you have to share.
Great. Well, it's, again, the Edley Center on Law and Democracy at Berkeley Law School. It's EDLEY. And so if you put that in your search engine, you'll find us. And Richard, to your point, we have white papers that help people know this is something I can do. Here are steps I can take. And they're just on our website and the publications page. And we'd love to have you take a look and also join some of our convenings that are talking about exactly these issues and how each of us can be democracy defenders. It'd be really exciting to have more company in that work.
Democracy defenders, y'all. That's going to be everybody's new title. I'm a defender of democracy, and I got a little credibility because I've been hanging out with the folks at UC Berkeley Law to learn a little bit more. What a nice badge to carry around for somebody that might feel like they're remote from the process. But Catherine Lhamon, who is the newly appointed executive director of the Edley Center on Law and Democracy at University of California's Berkeley Law School. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you hang out with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Great to talk with you.
Wow. I was, I've said this to you guys before, and I embrace it because I just do. I was nervous talking with her, only because of just the breadth of knowledge and experience that she has. And nervous in a good way because I just felt so honored to talk with her about what she's done in her career in terms of civil rights. With two great administrations, but also how she understands the intersection of civil rights, not just in a public square, but when it comes to business. And that's why I was asked her about, what businesses do to, wedge individuals' rights in the workplace and all the rest. So really great to talk with her. Make sure you follow her. Her name is Catherine with a C, Lhamon, Lhamon. And I know a couple of you have gotten after me and said, Richard, when you have a guest on, make sure if the name, we can't find the name, you spell it for us. So there you go. I'm doing what you ask as best I can. Check her out. Make sure that you are following her. And the white papers are pretty amazing. Just if you talk about being informed, grab some of the white papers that she's put together with her team there, and it will help you have some real good understanding, not only to what they're doing, what the meaning is inside of them, but what you can then do to be involved. And that's one of my things. All right, let's get this in before we get this break. Make sure as you're joining our shows here on WCPT, you can go to heartlandsignal.com, tune in to watch a live video stream on Facebook and on YouTube. Our featured interviews and full episodes are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Amazon. You can search Choose Views. You can click on my picture. You can do all those fun things. We've got our candidate interviews there that we've had these last few weeks. And if you haven't already, You can follow Heartland Signal on X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Heartland Signal, one word. So make sure that you are putting yourself there to access the work that we're all doing. And again, credit to Henry and to Devin and to Mike and Maddie B and Lady B and to Paul and all the rest, Nikos, who work really hard to make sure that the shows and the comments and the interviews and all the things that we do are digestible for you guys to be able to review yourself, look at again, and then share with people. They put in a lot of hard work to make our brand in that space better for you, the end receiver or user. So follow us in all the socials and share it with people that you know that are like, what do I do? How can I get involved? What are some sources? So there you go, guys. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Amazon Business empowers leaders with smart business buying tools, leaving time to focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future at AmazonBusiness.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. will investigate a shooting off Cuba's coast involving 10 passengers on a Florida-registered speedboat who opened fire on Cuban soldiers.
As it stands now, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, others are involved. The majority of the information we still possess is what Cuban authorities are providing both the public and the U.S. government.
Cuba's government said its soldiers killed 4 people and wounded 6 others yesterday during the shooting, adding the passengers were armed Cubans living in the U.S. 1 Cuban soldier was also injured. Rubio told reporters the U.S. is looking into whether the victims were American citizens or permanent residents. Vice President J.D. Vance says the administration is holding back nearly $260 million to Minnesota over Medicaid fraud concerns.
We have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money.
This decision is part of what Vance described as an aggressive crackdown on misuse of public funds. In other news, FIFA's leader is backing Mexico as a World Cup co-host following recent cartel violence.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino says he has complete confidence in Mexico as a World Cup co-host, despite days of cartel violence in the country that has left at least 70 people dead. FIFA says Mexico can still safely co-host the World Cup despite deadly cartel violence linked to a top drug lord's death. On Monday, authorities reported at least 70 deaths after cartel members burned cars and blocked roads in many states. Some local league matches have already been postponed. Infantino says he trusts Mexico's authorities and FIFA is monitoring events closely. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
This is AP News. Federal agents in Los Angeles were searching the home and office of the head of the nation's second largest school district. AP correspondent Jennifer King has more.
The FBI is serving search warrants at the home and office headquarters of the superintendent of the Los Angeles Unified School District, Alberto Carvalho. TV news footage showed agents in FBI shirts and jackets outside Carvalho's modest home in the San Pedro neighborhood. A person familiar with the probe says it's part of an ongoing investigation. At the beginning of the school year, Carvalho told CBS News it was clear that amid federal immigration crackdowns, there was a lot of fear in families that he described as having fragile immigration status. He said the district was working with a number of cities to develop and implement a set of rapid awareness and communication protocols and doing what they could to lessen fear among parents. The nature of the investigation was not immediately clear. I'm Jennifer King.
More information at apnews.com. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see mostly sunny skies here for today with a high into the mid-40s. Winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. And then for tonight, mostly clear with a low near 33. By Friday, we'll see sunshine, breezy conditions, high of 62. Then Saturday, a chance for some snow late, cloudy, high of 38 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 27.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, U.S. Tax Shield can help you take back control. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Our team of tax attorneys can stop collections and get you protected. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the BBB, so call 800-466-9625. U.S. Tax Shield, 800-466-9625.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for hanging with us. Again, Catherine Lhamon, wow, follow her. She is just doing great work, and it's one of those people that, and her group and team that you can sort of turn to improve, what you're reading and how you're better informing yourselves. Sometimes an author will write a book, and it's about, I should put it this way. Most of the time when authors write a book, it's about an experience that they have, or maybe a 1 degree of separation of an experience that they have through someone else, family member, for example. And, Black history is a good example of that. And what do I mean? We get told, as we all do in all of our families, but in Black history, which I can speak to, we get told these stories about things that happen. Uncle Johnny, Aunt Sarah, so-and-so did X, Y, and Z. And then you realize the layers of, oh my gosh. And they were part of the Great Migration and all these stories that, we as Black folks get to embrace as part of our American fabric, as part of our connection to our Caucasian brothers and sisters and our Asian brothers and sisters and our Latino and Hispanic and Mexican brothers and sisters. We get to make those connections. Headphones weren't fitting quite right. Sorry. So we make those connections oftentimes through the stories that someone told 1 or 2 conversations away. And our next guest has been with us before and has really had a career of doing that, whether it be public speaking, whether it be some of the essays that he's done as a professor, and, of course, as a writer. Ralph Eubanks, like me, we both have roots in the state of Mississippi with its big rolling hills and tall pine trees and red dirt. And it's good to have him back with us this morning to kind of bring us through and up on his most recent book, When It's Darkness on the Delta. Good morning, Brother Ralph, and welcome back to Choose Views on WCPT here in Chicago.
Oh, good morning. It's good to be back with you again.
Yes. Wow. Lots has happened, since our last conversation, but
yes.
I have to say this, and I know you can chuckle with me. Pretty much everybody that I talk to, if I talked to them, a month ago, between then and now, we can start the conversation off with, oh my God, what's happened since we talked last? Henry and Mike are cracking up here like, yeah, that's the truth. But, you know, a lot has happened since we talked last. But one thing that's for sure is your book is doing well, and it's so great to have you back to talk about this in Black History Month as we come to the end of this, you know, Black History Month, or as I call it, American history. And your book is it resonates so strongly when it's darkness on the Delta and how America's richest soil became its poorest land. Remind our listeners, let's do a quick review of the book and the work. And then I want to get into something that you reminded us of last time. And I had a really great conversation last Friday with kind of a regional cousin of yours and mine, and that's General Russell Honore. So talk a little bit about the book again. Tell us a little bit about it and what drove you to put this together.
When It's Darkness on the Delta it's a book that really looks at the policy, political, and cultural issues that have disadvantaged the people in the Mississippi Delta, and also probes the myths that keep us from seeing them. I essentially take the reader on a journey through the Delta, and I began very personally with my own family's origin story in the Delta, with my father moving to the Delta in 1949 after graduating from Tuskegee. And I go through the Delta looking at, you know, various issues that have affected the Delta, whether it is access to health care and food, or if it's, you know, blues tourism, casino gambling, education, all those issues that have kind of affected the Delta over its history. And as I said, I use my family's origin story there as kind of a starting point, but then I move out from that to, you know, much more universal things. I often tell people that I'm not just writing about the Delta, I'm writing about America. And I'm looking at America through the lens of the Delta. And I think the Delta is this mirror to America and this mirror to American income inequality.
Yeah, you know, Ralph, this is the thing that's so profoundly accurate about what you just said. Mississippi's history it's a weird, ugly, beautiful history. And it's hard to say that in the same. But it is, you know, Mississippi has its just, you know, ugly past as it relates to enslavement, as it relates to Jim Crow, as it relates to civil rights, the Great Migration, and all the rest. And I've said this to so many people that have never been to the state of Mississippi, and it's just kind of a weird juxtaposition. It's an absolutely topographically beautiful state. And I'll give you this comparison. Chicago in northern Illinois is beautiful and gorgeous. And this is me saying my own personal thing, but I want you to lean into this because I know you understand sort of the geographics here. Downstate Illinois, kind of dusty and boring and flat. And that's just the truth. I'm not taking a shot at my own state. But then you get further south and you go through Cairo, Illinois, and you cross the bridge and you get into some of those areas, and then you finally get through, you know, and into Mississippi. And it's just flat out a beautiful topographical state. It just is. And I said earlier, the big pine trees, the rolling hills, the red dirt, you get down to the Gulf. It's beautiful. But it has this ugly social and economic history that unfortunately is still there for so many people. And that's one of the things I want to get to in a minute. But talk about that. Did I paint a reasonably decent picture?
I think you did. And, you know, and I have driven through downstate Illinois. I've driven to Chicago from Mississippi. And there is that transition. You're driving through flat land in the Delta. But one of the things I think people forget about the flat land of the Delta is that's a created environment. Originally, that was really very thick hardwood forest. Yeah. That was all cleared. And a lot of that lumber that was cleared from there went to Chicago and was used by the Sears Company to make those Sears houses.
Yep.
So a lot of that stuff came from Mississippi. When you get to the prairies of Illinois, that is just flat geographically. That is just the way that it is. It is flat. It is barren. So I think we created something in the Delta, whereas what you have in southern Illinois that's the way that it is. Yeah. And when you create a place, you do kind of leave some room for that beauty, even if it's bleak. And in the Southern Illinois, I think there is a bleak beauty to it. But I find Southern Illinois the most appealing, probably when the corn is hot.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's why I was careful to not sound like I was denigrating my own, home state, because it is absolutely when the corn. And Indiana is the same way. I would say, in that rural country feel of Indiana, you get into some areas where the corn is grown, and it is just absolutely beautiful.
I biked across Iowa this past summer, and I was really taken by the beauty of Iowa when the corn is high. I thought it was like Illinois.
Yeah.
But I've also driven through Iowa in the winter, and it is very bleak.
Don't get out of the car. If you got to get out of the car, you better use a truck stop. Don't go to a Soul gas station, man. Find you a truck stop and park on the other side of a semi, because you'll get blown over. Ralph, we have fun with this, but I absolutely love our country. I really just do. I love our country. I love the diversity of it, not just in its people, but in its geography and its topography. And you can go to, and that's why I'm so thankful and blessed that I've been to all 50 states in the country. And one of the things that, we talk about Mississippi, we talk about its impact on the Great Migration from the south to the north by communities. It also gets into, when we talk about the connection of those folks that have come from the south, that have come to the north through the migration up from Mississippi to the south to Chicago and other areas. What came with that also is all these other great cultural things: the food, the clothing, the music, the art, and it landed in certain communities that have just made them better over the decades. And Chicago has been one of the benefactors of this greatness that's come out of the state of Mississippi. What talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think we talked about this last time. I refer to Chicago as the Up South because it is a place where you can see the influence of the South in Chicago, and it's palpable for me as a Mississippian when I'm in Chicago. And I think it's one of the reasons I love the city of Chicago so much is it's Mississippi North. I mean, there's even a Blues Trail marker in Grant Park.
Yeah.
And I've made a pilgrimage there. So yes, there is this intense connection between Mississippi and Chicago. And I mean, one of those figures that I write about in When It's Darkest in the Delta, who definitely has this connection with Chicago, is the Dr. T.R.M. Howard, who moved to Chicago from Mount Bayou, Mississippi, an all-black town in Mississippi. He was very instrumental in, working with Mamie Till Mobley during the Emmett Till trial, giving Mamie Till Mobley a place of refuge during that trial. After that trial, he is pushed out of Mississippi. Some would say he's run out of Mississippi. And where does he go? He goes to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think of, the Evers brothers, Medgar Evers, who's slain, but after he's slain, his brother returns from Chicago back to Mississippi. So there's also always this back and forth between Mississippi and Chicago. And as I said, all three of my children live in Chicago, and they grew up in Washington D.C., but they spent a lot of time in Mississippi growing up. And I think it's one of the reasons they're so comfortable there is that it reminds them of going to Mississippi with me.
Yeah. My treks back as a boy, as a youngster growing up with family, hopping in the back of the station wagon and making our treks down to Mississippi are some of the best memories that I have. And again, I've always remembered taking in the topographical beauty of the state and all that's represented. I think that one of the big challenges that we have right now is what's happening economically. Mississippi's made some turns. I mean, we saw some great results from the Senate races down there, the state Senate particularly, back in November, which is great to see. Dr. Dupree won his election and kind of broke the stranglehold, the supermajority that's there. And, What's your assessment, Ralph, when it comes to how Mississippi is going to turn the corner and go forward? What are some of the things that you think it needs to do or that are opportunities that it can do? And then that's part one. The second part is, how can other parts of the country help, a state like Mississippi that's been run by Republicans? Let's just call it as it is. It's been run by people that don't want to see progress. But what can the rest of the country do, in your observation, to help this state turn the corner in a better direction?
I guess your first question is really kind of about the political changes that are taking place in Mississippi. I think some of that is coming about simply because the Republican supermajority came into Mississippi exactly 10 years ago. It was when I arrived back in Mississippi 10 years ago to teach at Millsaps College. And I think over the last 10 years, Mississippians have seen that supermajority is not really working for them, and that it's not really creating the change that needs to happen there. So there's a bit of a political awakening. I think what the rest of the country can do for Mississippi at this moment is really support the candidates who are trying to create that change in Mississippi. In the last Senate race, because we do have a Senate race coming up, and then the last gubernatorial election, it was very close between the Democrat who was running. And I think the National Party needs to invest a lot more in Mississippi and not really kind of write it off to the Republican Party. There are lots of people here, if you give them a reason to vote for someone other than those who've been in power, they will consider it. And I would say especially young people, and helping the young people organize. I have been incredibly inspired by young Black people who are living in the Delta today, who are organizing and doing incredible political and community organizing there. And I think that's what the rest of the country can do, is kind of support those organizations like Vote Mississippi, who are really trying to get people registered to vote. Right now, I think we have a voter registration crisis in Mississippi. We're a state that is 38% Black, yet we don't have any Black statewide elected officials. We have people in the Senate and the House, but we don't have, a Black attorney general, or a Black lieutenant governor, or a senator. We have one congressman, Benny Thompson, who represents the state of Mississippi, and that's because it is so racially gerrymandered.
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that people can really do, support the grassroots work that is being done in Mississippi right now.
There's so many people that answer, if you will, or that analysis plays so well in other red states. Not all, but certainly ones. And the reason I wanted to isolate it to Mississippi is because of the large Black population and other folks of color population in the state of Mississippi. And not having that representation is one of the hardest things that we deal with throughout the country, but certainly in a state that has such a strong Black population. So you're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with author, professor, historian, essayist W. Ralph Eubanks this morning. His latest book, Darkness on the Delta. Ralph, one of the things that is clearly an issue in many states in the country, but particularly where there are some economic challenges and or neighborhoods where there's economic challenges, and that's how data centers are affecting the use of resources. I had a great conversation, as I alluded to earlier, last Friday with General Russell Honore about what he's seeing in Louisiana and specifically in Baton Rouge, but other parts of the country, that his Green Army literally is designing itself around making sure that these data centers are going to be self-sustaining or they can't come into the community. Give us a little bit of your observation around how data centers, what you see they're doing to impact the resources in different parts of the country?
Well, I think in Louisiana, I know some of those data centers are coming to the region of Louisiana known as Cancer Alley. So there's this pattern of extraction that has taken place, and then these data centers are another form of extraction, and they're extracting resources at this time. And the other thing I think people don't think a lot about these data centers right now, you need these large data centers to create these AI models. But in a decade, are you going to actually need something that big? Probably not. Then you're going to have these huge data centers that are going to be left empty. So once again, there's this abandonment. So you're going to have large data centers left in the landscape like you have cotton gins now dotting the Delta.
Wow.
And we have to begin to think about that for a minute. Yes, this is something that is coming in the short term will bring something in, but what's the long-term impact of these data centers? And I don't think that question is being asked enough. And I do think a lot about the use of artificial intelligence. I'm also the president of the Authors Guild. And I worry about the impact that AI is having on the profession of writing. But as a writer who writes about places that have been subject to historic extraction, I also want people to begin to think about ask themselves the question, are these AI data centers another form of extraction? And I think they are.
Wow. Educators. Last week I had on Dr. Jessica Hawk, who talks about the use of technology in education. She's a 30-year retired school teacher and now a very strong content creator, and just someone that I connected with on social media and wanted to have her on the show because what she's saying is talking about how a resource is being extracted from education. You use the word extraction, is just another area where extraction is taking place that's allowing business and commerce to be faster driven than educating and training our society. And you brought this into the conversation around writers. What do you see is a concern of yours when it comes to that topic?
When it comes to the artificial intelligence and education, I have to be a bit pragmatic about it. It's here. It's not going away. So the genie can't be put back in the bottle.
Yeah.
So the issue becomes, well, how do we teach people to use it in a way that maintains certain standards within education, but also allows them to see some of the ways that AI does not help us? I think it's being pushed to a lot of students as a shortcut. And we have to begin to get them to realize there are no real shortcuts to kind of learning about something. And in education, we do have to begin to confront that. I know that Brown University right now has a provost for AI for that reason, just to think about what is the role of this in the university, what should the role be, and what should we be teaching our students about this? And yes, we can't put it away. And that's one of the things at the Guild, we say, yes, it's there. It's not going away, but it's just that we want to make sure that you're not using my work to create the models and I don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
Right now, is again, all of my books are in these AI large language models.
Wow.
Have I received any compensation for that? No. I can go on Google right now and find an entire summary of when it's darkness in the Delta. Is anyone asked for my permission to do that? No.
Wow.
But it's there. And so, and that's something I want people to think about. Yes, it is not going away. We have to learn to live with it. But we have to begin to, rather than saying this is going to solve all of our problems, we have to be very pragmatic about what can it be used for, and what should it not be used for? And we have to teach young people about that as well, rather than saying, don't use AI. Well, here's what because you're going to say that, and they're going to use it anyway.
Yeah.
Just saying that is not going to help.
Johnny, don't touch that hot stove, and then you hear a scream. Johnny touched the hot stove.
Yes. Well, I actually, in my syllabus for my class this semester, I actually say to my students, I would urge you not to use AI in any of your written work for this class. I said, because I will not use it to prepare my lectures or in any of my comments to you. Those will all come from my own intellectual work rather than someone else's.
Wow.
My own analysis. So I'm not asking you to do something that I don't do. And by putting it to them that way, that really kind of changed the dynamic.
Yeah, because I think what that does, if I were the student sitting in your class and I heard you say that, it would help me want to raise my standard of what I'm doing in your class to do a better job and be recognized by you as a professor as someone that listened and was willing to continue to put the work in. I would take a certain amount of pride in that, but also the fact that you take this the right way. You came off of your pedestal and said, hey, look, y'all, we're all in this together. I'm going to do this a certain way to do better at teaching you or instructing you or providing an environment. I just want you to kind of ride along so we can be, in that same car. I think that's a really honorable thing, a way to you to present that to your students, because then they can buy into the fact that, hey, Professor Eubanks is down with doing it a certain way with us.
Yeah, I mean, and that was really my whole intention of doing that, because I have to say the previous semester saying that don't use it was not working.
Watch us, Doc. We're going to use it, and you're not going to like it.
You're not going to like it. So I thought, okay, I've got to take a different tack with this.
Oh, it's so great to have you back with us, Brother Eubanks. It's always an honor. Your work is phenomenal. Darkness on the Delta is the latest brilliant bit of work and necessary bit of work to understanding the intersection of our states, our communities, and the land that we all, and this planet that we all live on. So thank you for being with us again. Look forward to having you back. We'll get you back in a few weeks to talk about the changes that took place in the last 6 to 8 weeks period of time.
All right. It's so great to talk with you.
All right. Be well. Ralph Eubanks is the author of this wonderful book, Darkness on the Delta. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll have you back soon. Sound good?
It sounds great.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Let's talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Let's take a quick break, guys. I can't talk this morning and keep biting my tongue. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and when we come back, we'll be talking with Nathan Taylor. It's going to talk a little bit about election security. We'll be right back.
Robin Kelly grew up behind the register in her dad's grocery store. So she knows what it means when the same groceries cost more each week. Under Donald Trump, corporations get tax breaks, loopholes, and a green light to price gouge. Families get higher grocery bills, higher childcare costs, high healthcare premiums. It's Trump's economy. Corporate profits first, people last. In Congress, Robin Kelly's been fighting back. Robin took on insurance companies to lower drug costs. She wrote the law extending Medicaid for new moms to a full year because cutting care after 60 days was just wrong. And now Robin Kelly is running for Senate with a people over profits agenda. Medicare for all, so healthcare isn't a ripoff. Cap on childcare costs so families can work. And crack down on corporate price gouging so you're not punished at every turn. People over profits. Robin Kelly for U.S. Senate.
I'm Robin Kelly, Democrat running for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Robin Kelly for Senate.
Save big money on your dream kitchen upgrade with help from Menards. Clearview Cabinetry offers a selection of finishes made with the finest materials and built to withstand life's sticky messes. They provide features like soft closed doors and drawers and cabinet accessories to match your unique style. Save big money on Clearview Cabinets and check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for more great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
WCPT Radio is going to Will County to meet and interview Will County Democrats running in the March 17th primary. Meet me, WCPT's Joan Esposito, and Will County Democrats Thursday, March 5th at Mojo's Cajun and Caribbean restaurant located on Lockport Avenue, 1 block west of Route 59 in downtown Plainfield. Candidates being interviewed include Will County Undersheriff Dan Jungles running for Will County Sheriff, Michelle Stiff running for Will County Clerk, School District Superintendent Teresa Rouse running for Regional Office of Education Superintendent, and several county board candidates. Will County Democratic candidates will be interviewed live on the Joan Esposito Show. It's all happening Thursday, March 5th from 2 to 5 p.m. at Mojo's in Plainfield. For directions, call Mojo's at 815-230-2790.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
You are listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-40s. Winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. And then for tonight, mostly clear with a low near 33. By Friday, we'll see sunshine, breezy conditions, high of 62. Then Saturday, a chance for some snow late, cloudy, high of 38 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 27.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Richard Chu's got his eyes on the truth. And you're right where you need to be. This is Chu's Views.
Hey guys, welcome back again. Great to have Ralph Eubanks with us. We're probably like third or fourth cousins, Henry. You know, both of us having roots in Mississippi, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, great guy and an amazing, I guess, analysis. And I'm looking forward to talking with him more about things that he's been working on and the connections that he makes. Again, I say this often about the dotted lines turning into solid lines, and I get that from my wife. But it is so true when we talk about the things that are so important to us right now and how we have to make these connections. And we talk about this as it relates to elections and what we're all concerned about, those that give a darn about election security and election accuracy, both in the process leading up to, i.e. registration and voting, as well as the outcomes and the measuring of the data. Nathan Taylor is the executive director in advocacy and public engagement with Election Truth Alliance, ETA. And the beauty of the work that Nathan does is it's not so much about pointing fingers. When I read through their information and read through some of the work that they've done and Nathan's hard work, I think about it as objectively as I can. I could lean in the direction to say, yeah, they screwed us in 2024. There's evidence to say that there was some shenanigans. But the thing that ETA does that I really appreciate, one of the things that they do that I appreciate is their analysis, the way that they look at the trends and say, it doesn't quite make sense. And you guys know how I am about that. I use that phrase, it doesn't make sense. The common sense isn't in play here. And that's one of the things that I dig about what Nathan and Lily and the whole team are doing. So I want to welcome back to Choose Views Nathan Taylor, Executive Director of Advocacy and Public Engagement with the Election Truth Alliance. Nathan, I can't talk this morning. I keep biting my tongue. I apologize for that, man. Welcome back to Choose Views.
No worries. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me again. I think you kind of hit it on the head already, which is our core message is just looking at the data, looking at, the analysis we put out, and we don't like to point fingers. That's not my job. That's not the ETA's job. We're not really here to accuse people of problems. We're really just about saying, let's look at our elections in the U.S. And recently we have put out and made public some data looking at Canadian elections.
Really?
They had their federal election in early 2025, I believe. So it's more about looking at, as you said, can we quantify elections and voting behavior in a way that if there are problems, we then know where to start looking? And that's kind of what we're pushing for now, is we're saying, let's figure out how can we improve our processes and start asking these questions as we go forward.
Is that hard to do with, there's so much into this question, so I'm going to try to keep it tight. Is that hard to do given the administration that we have right now and what they said that they want to try to do? I mean, the president of the United States says, listen, y'all, I think the GOP we should federalize the elections. I think we should. Is it hard to not point fingers and stay on the analysis track when you have a president and a party that wants to drive the train into the ditch?
Well, ironically, a lot of the pushback our work gets is from both major political parties.
Okay.
We get a lot of pushback from election officials across the U.S. that are Democrats, on top of, as you said, some of the concerns that are coming out from the current administration. And it's mostly a problem of us here in the U.S., right? We're told, and we believe that our elections are special, and it can't happen here, right? It's impossible to mess with our elections. We have the best processes, the best practices. And it's ironic that as the work we've been doing, not only putting out these analysis, which look at voter behavior using these metrics that experts that have used, to look at Russian elections and found election fraud there, the same methods we use to look at the U.S., but on top of that, we've started digging into, I think we talked about this last time, how are we actually running our elections in the U.S.? What equipment are we using? Who owns that equipment? And is it kind of a black box? And are there concerns? And what's funny is, as we've continued to put out these analysis, a lot of the pushback we're getting is from these elected officials who happen to be Democrats, who pretty much kind of say, no, don't ask questions. Don't ask for, additional investigations into the results because you're questioning the integrity of U.S. elections, when in reality, as I like to say, I worked in cybersecurity and banking, auditing banks before, and it's kind of like, it's your job to ask questions, because if there aren't problems, you're not going to find anything.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And that's probably, I think the big piece here is, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And if there are things that are broken that need to be fixed, then the only way you're going to figure that out is by asking the questions that that others are not asking. Let me come back to something you touched on a little bit in terms of measuring elections in other spaces and places outside of the United States. And you just recently pulled some data with regard to Canada's national elections. Talk about that. Tell us what you did and why. Tell us what you did and what you found.
Yeah. So some of the people, I know you mentioned Lily. She's one of the other executive directors of the ETA. She's actually, she works in Canada. And there's been a big focus on the pushback we get is when we're doing these analysis, they're like, well, this is the U.S. votes very, specifically, we're special and we can't quantify U.S. voting behavior, which, we thought was an interesting response. So we said, well, let's look at other major countries' elections within the same time period, which Canada had their federal election just after, just going into 2025. So not too long after our presidential. So we pulled their voting data. They, they put up their voting data, and it's kind of the same as how we do our analysis. They just have it at a very high level. It's kind of the equivalent of states or very large districts. They're called ridings in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But what was interesting is when we took their voting data for the entire country, by the way, and we analyzed it the same way that we do U.S. elections, the same way we've done for Pennsylvania, and we do that comparison, the analysis is not showing any of the same trends as we're seeing in the U.S. Instead, we see that using the analysis, it's textbook what normal human voting behavior should look like based on what these experts talk about. We're not seeing any patterns of higher turnout benefiting any one party or candidate. They have multiple major parties in their election as well. So I think that's what's really interesting is when we do a side-by-side comparison, Canada looks far more normal. There's not any shifts or trends. They're pretty consistent across all levels of turnout. And that's kind of what these analyses look at. But in the U.S., in some of these larger swing states, very impactful like Pennsylvania, we see a very strong and very consistent change in how voters cast their votes, but only in places of higher turnout, which is a little bit of a red flag because it mirrors exactly what some of the experts have raised concerns of vote manipulation in Russian elections, where they're, stuffing polling locations, or they're, trying to bus people to the polls, or they're maybe getting rid of votes, and it creates certain effects at places of high turnout, independent of demographics. And so that's one of the main pieces. And there's another piece, which is what we cover in our report, and we actually have some videos coming out where we talk about it even more. We talk to Canadian citizens who worked in their elections, and they hand count their results. They don't use machines. They don't process the machines like we do. By the way, almost 100% of our votes are counted by machines, even hand-marked paper ballots, even mail-in. They run them through scanners, and they get turned into, digitized and then counted up at the county level. Canada doesn't do that. Canada will actually hold up their results, at the polling locations or wherever they're counting them, and have, everyone look at them. They're like, another vote for this person or this party. And then that's how they actually receive and review their results, is it's all by hand. It's all by multiple witnesses. And there's never a kind of a black box hidden behind the scenes counting, which is kind of what happens in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that let me ask a better question. How do you evaluate the impact of the Electoral College in our election systems on a federal level?
See, that one's an interesting question. I do think the Electoral College is a process that at this point has a major piece when it comes to districts and like Senate or House races or even, state levels. A major impact. Now, it doesn't have an impact at the presidential level, which is why when we do our analysis, the effects we're seeing are really concerning because there's no gerrymandering aspect. It's the presidential, every county and every state is voting on that ticket. So it's really hard to just take pieces of the state and take those votes for your group because it's a presidential race. So I do think as we go forward in our elections, there's going to be a lot of attention on how we're, dividing up our counties, our states, and our districts, because that will have an impact on, how people can vote. That's a little outside of what the ETA touches because you're getting a little bit more into the realm of like state legislation, which is what determines how who can vote where.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM, 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with Nathan Taylor, who is the Executive Director of Advocacy and Public Engagement with Election Truth Alliance. So let's get a little bit more sort of topic of the day around voting, our upcoming elections throughout the rest of this year, and certainly when we get to the midterms. One of the big concerns right now is mail-in voting, and then the Postal Service and their part in this. What do you see as some potential landmines, road speed bumps over these next 7 to 9 months when it comes to mail-in and Postal Service?
Yeah. So a lot of our planning right now with the ETA is obviously we can do these analysis and we can actually pull out different types of voting. And one of the side effects of doing that is we have separated voting behavior in, for example, Pennsylvania for the presidential election, looking at election day versus early voting versus mail-in, depending on some places will or will not have early voting. And what's always interesting is we process those types of voting differently, as you know, right? Mail-in is generally done at the county level. People will receive they'll ask the county for their ballots. They'll get them sent to them. They'll send them back. And most of the time they have to have a signature. Some places will actually have to have you have a witness also co-sign, like in North Carolina. So there's a far stronger chain of custody when it comes to mail-in. And so that's always interesting is we're getting told, as you said, there's such an attack. There's such a focus on getting rid of mail-in voting. And some of the entities and people who want mail-in voting to be harder to use accuses mail-in voting of being a vehicle for compromising elections. But the data doesn't really back that up. When we run analysis on just mail-in voting behavior, we actually see it looking far more like what we say is more normal human voting behavior, like what we see in Canada. So it's really interesting that there is such a focus on mail-in voting because it could be some vehicle for fraud when it has a higher chain of custody than in-person or early voting. There's a better record because the county has at least 2 points of contact. We sent a mail-in ballot and we received a mail-in ballot from this person. And the analysis that we've put out recently points to a lot of the concerns being a little more focused around in-person voting. A lot of the weird anomalies and effects we're seeing is happening in early voting or election day voting. So why is there such a focus to prevent people from voting by mail going forward? That's the question we're asking.
Wow. And that's the kind of information that people need to hear, that the concerns or the data is reflecting or representing, I should say, not what people are saying that it is. In other words, to your point, it isn't just the mail-in ballot voting that's the concern or the primary concern. It's really you're seeing more things from early and in-person voting. Wow, that's crazy. So let's talk about that and talk about one other area that are on people's minds, and this voter roll grab by the administration down in Georgia, and we heard loose conversation around some of the concerns around fraud and issues, and some tinkering seems to be making its way back to the doorstep of Elon Musk in terms of some improprieties down in Georgia. What have you heard around that? What's real? What's fiction? How can you lean into that?
Well, I think at this point most people are starting to see the news about concerns around Elon Musk's super PAC being involved with potentially sending pre-filled out mail-in ballots or something to voters, which I believe does break some of the state laws. Now, I think he is continuing to play a major role in elections going forward. Obviously, we can't talk too much about that, but there is a few other pieces which is interesting for Georgia. And as you mentioned, concerns about accessing of voter records or things like this. I think I mentioned this last time you had me on, was this isn't the first time we've seen a effort to gain access to voter information and actual access to the systems that we use. By the way, there's really two major systems we use across the U.S. and especially the swing states that at least 70% of the U.S. uses to count our votes and process our election results. And we've seen targeted attempts, some successful, to access that equipment, like in Coffee County, Georgia, where allies that may or may not have been associated with the Trump campaign went in and accessed voting equipment, copied software and data from the county. Mesa County, Colorado, and Colorado's had a lot of interesting stuff kick off. So same thing there, where accessing some of this voting data. And then Michigan actually had, prior to the 24 election, a few other instances of tests and people gaining access to voting equipment. I think the concern is, what can you do with having copies of the operating systems of these counting systems What can you do with voter rolls? Well, one of the concerns is definitely going to be if you wanted to manipulate election results, knowing how to compromise the systems that count those results is important, but also knowing who can vote, because not only there, you can target people. And that's a big concern, is one of the effects that has been documented in our elections in the 24 election before that. And this is some of the work that Greg Palast has put out. He's another election integrity gentleman. He's an investigative.
Yeah, we've had
expert.
Greg on the show a bunch of times. He's a strong friend of WCPT, and was just here 2 weeks ago, and I did an event with him for his documentary Vigilantes Inc. Powerful.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. And so he's dug a little deeper into the effects to remove voters based on certain demographics. Are they a minority? Are they certain last names? And if you have voter registration information for voters all across the U.S., you can do that. You can target them. It's not that hard.
No.
So there is a concern, right? We should be concerned. Everyone should be, ready for the midterms. We can't tell people how to vote. That's not our job. Our job is to say you can check your registration, because some people may have been removed. So you need to check your registration multiple times leading up to the midterms. You need to be aware of the concerns around how our elections are run. And really it comes down to, we want people to be engaged and be ready, but we also need people to realize that there are vulnerabilities that could be exploited, and we need to watch and we need to, prepare if that does happen.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, as we kind of wrap up, I want to ask you a little bit about one of the things that you guys do known as down ballot difference. It's part of the analysis that is part of your construct. Could you share a little bit more about that with our listeners?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things we can do in the U.S., especially during like a presidential election, is there's multiple races going on the same ticket at the same time. So this is something we can't do in Canada, because Canada really only has one major election, one major race. But in the U.S., we'll have like the president. Most of the same places will have like House and Senate races, even like local county races. So one of the things we do is we can look at, based on which state it is, we can look at the registration data or the amount of votes a certain party is getting up and down the ticket. And this is an interesting analysis because, for example, for the 24 election, we did this analysis looking at some of the major swing states, looking at how many votes did the Democrats get at the presidential level versus how many votes did they get in some of the key Senate or even state like governor or other races. And we were noticing when we did this analysis, well, for one, the standard or the expectation is normally that the president will be a little more popular than some of these down ballots. The president's a big deal. That's only, that it's most places will have these type of elections maybe every 2 years. Presidential is, far more spread out. So people will show up to vote for the presidential. So 1% to 2% more votes for the presidential is normal. We didn't see that for the 24 election. We actually saw in many of these places we've investigated and put out these reports, like Pennsylvania, is in some of these key places, we're finding the presidential race had a noticeable drop-off or a lack of votes that were still cast for some of these down ballot positions that went on to win. So that was one of our analysis, is we were pointing out how interesting is it that the presidential Democratic candidate was getting less votes than some of these senators. And when looking at how the votes were spread out across these counties, we were seeing almost a mirror image where the presidential race, Trump would be getting anywhere from 2 to 3% more votes than their down ballot, and Harris would be getting kind of the mirror opposite in some of these places. And that was a major red flag for us, because we didn't expect to see, based on what was held to be normal, that almost mirroring effect. Which we said, what could be a cause of this? Well, an unpopular candidate may create this effect, but the consistency of it, like mirroring across all of these counties, raised red flags for raised red flags for potentially being an effect caused by taking votes from one candidate and giving them to the other on the same race, and that would create that effect as well.
I think a lot of people had this suspicion or this feeling or this inkling in November, December, or even January last year after the election or 2024 election, but didn't know where to turn to kind of search and discover more information. So it's great that you have and your team have put together such great analysis around this conversation. Because, Nathan, a lot of people don't want to look at it because it's, again, going back to a phrase that you used earlier, not on our watch. It can't happen here. This is the United States of America. How dare people say that things did not happen the way that they did and they weren't fit? But the irony is the rhetoric coming from the White House. We just have to call it as it is. I'm not necessarily being partisan in this moment. But the rhetoric coming out of the White House and the administration is that there is shenanigans that went on with our election. But a lot of people don't want to hear that conversation if you're not on that side of the conversation. So it is a crazy way of entering in this conversation about election security and election legalities. Wow. It's great to have you with us again, Nathan. So much information, and I know there's so much more that we could talk about in the space. As we wrap up, a couple things you want people to be mindful of, and I know we'll talk about this again because we'll have you back on before the midterms. But what are some things you want people just to be mindful of and be doing as it relates to them getting prepared for the midterms?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, our main thing is going to be to check your registration, because some people have already reported being removed when they were still active voters. So you can check that from, I believe, your county website. Generally will let you check that, or if not, your state. Check that, prepare and make plans to vote. Engage with your communities. Go check out our website and our reports. We'll be putting out more. We'll have a historical report come out here probably within the next 2 weeks that looks at both the 24 election, but the 2020 and 2016 elections as well. And then we actually go back earlier to before we've used the voting systems we have, when we used to hand count our elections, so early 1980s. Wow. So we'll have that as well to maybe zero in on when are some of these effects we're seeing, is this the first time this has happened or what? And I think that'll be interesting as we go forward.
Absolutely. Nathan, thank you so much. Nathan Taylor, Executive Director of Advocacy and Public Engagement with Election Truth Alliance. Thanks for hanging with us again, my friend. Good to talk to you, and we'll talk again soon. Sound good?
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye now. You too. 773-763-9270 is always our number. We thank you guys for hanging with us this morning. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And remember to take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, this is Pat Hines, candidate for Cook County Assessor. I've spent 30 years working in property tax assessments, serving taxpayers like you. We need a Cook County Assessor who will give you reliable and on-time property tax bills. This job requires professionalism, not politics. I'm Pat Hines, candidate for Cook County Assessor. I ask for your vote on or before March 17th.
This ad was paid for by Hines for Assessor.
Snapshot from Progressive wasn't created for just anybody. Oh no, we made it for you. Smooth accelerators. When that light turns green, you're off. Like a warm knife through firm butter. Going from 0 to the speed limit in an appropriate amount of time. Sure, your car has horsepower, but your horses prance around as silky smooth as your right foot. Fancy Prancerton. With Snapshot, safe drivers like you get personalized rates based on your driving habits. Sign up today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents.
Hey guys, this is Tara Devlin for the Political Voices Network. This is America, right? We don't do kings here. No crowns, no thrones, no authoritarian cosplay. That's why we created the No Kings American Flag pin. For the low price of $20.26, that's 2026, we're keeping our eye on the prize here. This well-crafted enamel pin is the standard 1-inch American flag lapel pin. But this one features the patriotic No Kings symbol that defines our rallying cry. It's your quiet way of signaling to other patriots that you believe in democracy, and yeah, that still matters. You can grab yours now at store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. That's store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. The No Kings American Flag pin. Get it now at store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com.
From posters and presentations to labels and loyalty cards, Staples has all the print to boost your brand. Shop now, in-store, and online. Staples. That was easy.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Bill and Hillary Clinton began 2 days of depositions before U.S. House lawmakers who are investigating convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testifies before the House Oversight Committee Thursday behind closed doors in the Clintons' hometown of Chappaqua, New York, as part of a congressional investigation into the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The 2 days of depositions also include former President Bill Clinton. Republicans have long wanted to press the Clintons for answers about their connections with Epstein and his former confidant Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year federal prison sentence for conspiring with Epstein. Donna Warder, Washington.
Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi says the U.S. and Iran have been exchanging creative and positive ideas and will resume talks after a break. The foreign minister has been mediating the negotiations. Al-Busaidi added he's hopeful more progress can be made later today when negotiations resume. Convoys believed to be holding the Iranian and U.S. delegations left the Omani residence in Geneva after several hours of indirect negotiations that started this morning. Cuba's government says the 10 passengers on a boat that opened fire on its soldiers were armed Cubans living in the U.S. who were trying to infiltrate the island and unleash terrorism. Cuba said its soldiers killed 4 people and wounded 6 others, who were aboard the Florida-registered speedboat. 1 Cuban soldier was also injured. To reporters, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the following about Cuba.
It is the only chance that it has to improve the quality of life for its people and not lose 15% of its population since 2021. 15% of the people of Cuba have left since 2021. That is not a system that's working.
Rubio also told reporters the U.S. is investigating. This is AP News.
AP Sports, I'm Gethin Coolbaugh. The Pistons held off the Thunder for a 124-116 win in a meeting of the NBA's Eastern and Western Conference leaders. Cade Cunningham had 29 points, as did Jalen Duren.
Doing everything that we know we can do.
College basketball, number 6 UConn snapped 15th-ranked St. John's 13-game winning streak with a 72-40 rout. Women's college hoops, number 8 Michigan held off number 13 Ohio State 88-86 in OT. NHL, the Devils honored U.S. men's hockey gold medalist and golden goal scorer Jack Hughes before their 2-1 loss to the Sabres. MLB, the Yankees will retire CC Sabathia's number 52 on September 26th, and NFL, the Commanders and Jaguars will host games in London next season, with Jacksonville set to become the first NFL team to play 2 games overseas in a season. Gethin Coolbaugh, AP Sports.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-40s. Winds out of the south around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. And then for tonight, mostly clear with a low near 33. By Friday, we'll see sunshine, breezy conditions, high of 62. Then Saturday, a chance for some snow lake, cloudy, high of 38 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 27.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Raise the bar on performance and style in a brand new Porsche from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our extensive selection, like the 2026 Porsche Macan. Right now, lease the 2026 Macan for only $949 a month for 39 months. Discover performance like no other when you visit the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. $8,519 due at signing for qualified buyers. Excludes tax title license and doc claim. No security deposit required. Expires 3/2/26.
In times of uncertainty, we need leaders who put country before party. Dan Tully answered that call, serving our nation with honor.
I served in the Army Reserve and as a federal civil servant. But when the Trump agenda threatened our democracy, I refused to stay silent. I left my job in Washington in protest of Trump's lawlessness.
Dan Tully is the only candidate with a detailed plan to hold Trump accountable, a veteran, a principled leader, and ready to fight for you.
Visit dantully.com to see my comprehensive strategy for accountability. I'm Dan Tully, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Dan Tully for Congress.
Tell me how you're doing. Really. Tell me that you missed the bus this morning, your rent's past due, and your stress level has skyrocketed. I'm here for you. To listen, not judge. To connect you to local mental health resources. No matter what you're going through, specialists like me from NAMI Chicago Helpline are here for you. Call or text Helpline to 833-626-4244. That's 833-626-4244.
Kids across America are going to school hungry. Millions of kids every day. But one simple thing can help change all of this for a hungry child in America. Good, healthy food and the energy it brings. With help from caring people across America, No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. To learn more about ending child hunger in America, go to helpnokidhungry.org today.
WCPT 820 Chicago.